Hi everyone, my name is Jorge Besada, and once again I'm the author of Economics, the Social Order, and the Rompa Revolution. In this video I want to discuss the evolution of money and the important role that it plays in society. In a previous video I discussed a small market-oriented society where I traded my coconut pastries for a basket. Now in that example I did not use money. I traded my coconut pastries directly for the basket. This sort of direct trade is called barter, and barter is the most primitive and the most obvious way of going about trading. Now, unfortunately, barter is very unproductive. For example, what would have happened if the basket maker was not interested in trading for my coconut pastries, but he wanted bread instead? In that case, I would have had to visit the bread maker. Hopefully, he was interested in trading his bread for my coconut pastries, so then I can trade the bread for the basket. But what if he too wasn't interested in my coconut pastries and he wanted blankets? And the blanket vendor was interested in nails as opposed to my coconut pastries. So finally I get lucky, the nail manufacturer is willing to trade for my coconut pastries, so I finally trade, I got the nails, I trade the nails for the blanket for the bread, and the bread for the basket. Now obviously this is a very unproductive process. Let's assume that it took me 5 hours to run around town to set up all these intermediate trades. While I'm doing this, I am not being productive. If instead society was using money, I could quickly make the trade for the basket and spend those same 5 hours being productive, increasing the economic pie by creating more of my coconut pastries. So by using money, one overcomes this tremendous problem. And this problem arises out of what economists refer to as the double coincidence of wants problem. Whenever you make a trade, you need the coincidence that both parties want what the other party is willing to offer in exchange. So once again, by using money, one overcomes this problem, leading to a tremendous amount of additional productivity that leads to a bigger economic pie, a bigger population, a more powerful social order that can spread either via conquest, immigration, etc., and therefore spread the money using ways of building social order and overtake the moneyless, strictly barter-based ways of creating social order. So how did people begin using money? How did it evolve? Was it because some smart individual, when faced with the double coincidence of wants problem, suddenly said, oh, we can just all start trading the same thing and that'll be money and that'll solve our problems? And thanks to this, our civilization will be very prosperous and we will be able to dominate the world. Or did some king just say, oh, we're going to start using money? That's not what happened. What happened is the following. In every society, especially in the more tribal, simpler societies, there are bound to be some goods or commodities that are very popular and very useful to all the members of society. And because of this, when people were looking to make their trades, they realized that instead of only making trades for the things that they necessarily wanted, that they could make trades for these kinds of goods that were very useful to people in society, and then they could use these goods to trade for all the other things that they wanted. For example, in my small market-oriented society example, pigs were very popular because pigs might have been the local animal around. They're very easy to take care of. You just throw them in their corral and they pretty much eat anything, and they're very useful. You could either kill the pig and eat the pig, or if you have too many pigs, then since they're so popular and so useful, you're going to have an easy time trading them for the things that you really want. So once enough people started trading pigs, not necessarily because they wanted to eat them, but because they knew that the pigs could later be used to trade for something else, then this made pigs even more popular, and eventually this is what led to pigs being used as money in my small fictitious tribal society. So this use of money again is something that naturally arose. It suited the intentions of many individual brains, and the more individuals started using the pigs for trading, the more incentive there was for it to become money. And without an act of parliament or anyone necessarily designing the use of money, money naturally arose. And inadvertently, people overcame the double coincidence of wants problem. And this led inadvertently again to a higher, more productive, a higher population, a more productive population that was able to expand its social order and therefore its pig money using ways as opposed to just strictly barter. If one looks at the history of various civilizations, one can see how they used different types of money given their environments. For example, pre-revolutionary America at times used beaver pelts and tobacco for money. And perhaps the most common money that was used by many important civilizations was cattle. And here I want to briefly quote Karl Menger, the founder of the Austrian School of Economics, whose monumental Principles of Economics not only laid probably the most important foundation for the Austrian School of Economics, but in it he also has an important essay on the nature of money that serves the foundation for everything that I'm discussing here with respect to money. And I sure hope I'm not misrepresenting his views. In it he says the following: in the earliest periods of economic development, cattle seem to have been the most sellable commodity among most peoples of the ancient world. Domestic animals constituted the chief item of the wealth of every individual among nomads and peoples passing from a nomadic economy to agriculture. Later on he says, the trade and commerce of the most cultured people of the ancient world, the Greeks, showed no trace of coined money even as late as the time of Homer. Barter still prevailed, and wealth consisted of herds of cattle. Payments were made in cattle, prices were reckoned in cattle, and cattle were used for the payment of fines. Later on, among the Arabs, the cattle standard existed as late as the time of Muhammad. And as societies progressed and metals became more valuable, people slowly made the switch to the metallic standard. And Menger continues, copper was the earliest metal from which the farmer's plow, the warrior's weapons, and the artisan's tools were fashioned. Copper, gold, and silver were the earliest materials used for vessels and ornaments of all kinds. At the cultural stage at which peoples passed from cattle money to an exclusively metallic currency, therefore copper and perhaps some of its alloys were goods of very general use. So, and especially as people began to concentrate themselves more in cities, then definitely having animals around and manure and all that stuff became a bigger nuisance and created even more incentives to switch to the metallic standard. So next, I want to briefly discuss some of the qualities that lead to a superior money. Since money is such a crucial part of the modern social order, having the money meet certain criteria ensures that it provides a better function to society. So, for example, we want the money to have wide acceptance as a medium of exchange. You want the money to be accepted by as many people as possible. This allows you to trade for the most amount of goods and services, right? The more people accept this particular type of money, then that means that the more people will be able to trade with each other, and by trading they improve their condition, right? The human ant farm is constantly trading, and that's what moves people into prosperity. So you want people to be able to trade with as many people as possible. The money should have intrinsic value. It should be valuable on its own, and this is what helps more people accept the money. For example, chickens are valuable. The more people value chickens, the more people will be able to trade for chickens. Therefore, the more transactions will take place, helping society move from inferior to superior states of well-being. And here, once again, we can see how something like gold is very useful, because everyone values gold, and therefore everyone is willing to trade for gold. You want the money to be durable. You definitely do not want the money to run away from you or to burn or rust. And here, once again, we see how gold is perfect for this. You want the money to be easily divisible, so you can make transactions and make trades that involve very tiny amounts. And you also want to be able to have the money be easily added and aggregated into bigger quantities, so you can make larger purchases. And here, once again, we see how gold is perfect for this. It can be used in very small little coins, and it can be melted into bars to make very big purchases. You want the money to be convenient, so it can be easily carried, etc. And here, once again, we can see how gold is perfect for this. It's definitely a lot easier to carry gold coins around than having to herd a bunch of cattle and chickens, etc. And lastly, the money should be relatively scarce and hard to manufacture. And this is a quality that we will discuss in more depth when we discuss inflation. So let's quickly recap. Just like going from self-sufficient societies to market-based societies was the result of human action, but not the result of conscious human planning or design, the same thing can be said about going from barter-based market societies to more complex money-coordinated ones. And the same thing can be said about using gold for money. Gold is something that was naturally selected for. Natural selection selected market-oriented over non-market-oriented, money-coordinated over barter-coordinated, and it gave tremendous advantages to gold-using societies.